Okay, I want to welcome everyone to It's About Your Story, the art and science of getting others to listen. We have our presenter, Chuck Goldstone. He is a previous presenter, and we haven't had him in a while, and we're very excited to have him return with his area of expertise. But as we get started, I do want to explain a few things to you about SCORE. Make sure that you're taking advantage of everything we have to offer. SCORE's goal is to share small business information. We do that in a couple different ways. We have the score.org website. You're going to find podcasts, blogs, articles, templates you can download, and previous webinars that you can watch on demand. So I strongly encourage you to take a look if you haven't done that. The other way we offer information is through our workshops and webinars. We do advertise those via social media, our newsletter, and of course, they are listed on our website as well. I think the most important thing that SCORE does, though, will be its mentoring. And our mentors are volunteers. They come to SCORE with a variety of skill sets and experiences that they've learned from that they want to share with you. And we do work with folks that are in all stages of small business, whether you're trying to decide if you should be a small business owner, to those that are in the planning phase, in their business, growing their business, and getting ready to exit their business. So we work with everyone along that whole journey. A beginning session, a mentor's going to want to learn about you, what your goals and challenges are, and they're going to work with you to come up with a plan so that you can be successful. It's also not uncommon that other mentors will be brought in along the way because your needs are going to change, and we want to make sure that you get everything that you need to be successful. So getting a mentor, very easy. There's multiple ways on the score.org website. I think the easiest is going to be let us do the matching for you. You put in your zip code and that matches you to the chapter nationally that's nearest you. There's a little contact form you fill in. We're looking for information about what your business is and how we may help you in the moment. And that will allow us to match you to the right mentor to get things started. So a little bit about this morning. I do like to use Q&A on that Zoom toolbar. It allows me to not lose track of any questions. And we will take questions at the end because if you start putting things in chat and there's a lot of interaction through chat, sometimes those questions can get lost. So if you can put those in Q&A, that's fantastic. I am also recording today, and we will post this presentation in about 24 to 48 hours, and you'll be able to find it on the score.org/Boston website. From the graphic you can see on the blue toolbar under local workshops, you'll find it in the pull down previously recorded webinar. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull down my share and let Chuck get his slides ready and set. And you're welcome to begin when you're ready.
All right, let me pull up, wrestle with technology here and pull up the screen. There we go. And here we are.
Looks perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm Chuck Goldstone, and I've been actually, we figured out it's about 10 years or 8 years of doing this every so often. Always enjoyed the audience that we have. So I welcome all of you. And over the next hour or so, I'm hoping to be able to maybe change the way you look at the way you communicate to the world who you are. And I want to start out with the truth. And truth number one is that your great experience, your great idea, your technology, your business, developing that is, in fact, the second most important thing you will do to become successful. And the first is convincing others. And today we're going to look at how we communicate who we are and how we engage people so they lean forward and say, that's interesting, now tell me more. We'll be looking at how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else out there and how you become the person who is memorable. Um, I work with a lot of startups, and I'll explain in a minute how startups and existing businesses are very much the same. But companies fail, I think, and I like to oversimplify things. Simplification is, I think, the easiest way to communicate ideas. And I think that, from my experience, that companies fail for one of three reasons. Either the idea was not very good, there was no market for it, or it's a great idea, it's a great business, but it was poorly executed, poorly managed. And the third, and this is the most tragic, and that is it's a good idea. It's executed well, but the story was not good. It did not reach the audience or market that it was actually seeking. So I've seen talents, I've seen businesses, I've seen great ideas, and what some of them are missing is their story. So that's our focus for today. So we look at people who might be startups. We look at job seekers in the work that I do. We look at people who are employees of companies who want to better communicate their ideas and get buy-in, and businesses like yourself who uh, are looking to grow your market, improve your service. So startups and businesses, it's the value to the market. It is your persona, it's your branding. It's the image that you project. It is how you differentiate yourself from other people who are either your competitors or who your audience confuses you with. You have to be memorable and you have to align. Sometimes we work with employees of companies or career seekers, and it's pretty much the same. It's the value, not necessarily to the market, but the employer. It is persona, image, differentiation, memorability, alignment. If you have a very good story, then you will probably attain these things. So there you are, your own business, your own opportunity, your own talents, and you think that this is the greatest thing on the planet. That's why you're focusing your attention on it. And you think sometimes all you need to do is let people know you exist, and they will come running down the street to seek you. But the problem is you're not the only one out there. Everyone else is competing for the same time, the same opportunity, the same brain space. So what you need to do is to be heard above the noise. But the noise is not just your competitors. It is just all the noise out there with all the messages that we get. So your challenge is to be the one who stands out, the one who is memorable. So when we present and we present our ideas, a lot of people, when they try to project their image of what it is that they don't do such a good job. And that is pretty much the average. What I'm trying to do is get people to do what they do so it's pretty good, or it really wows the people who are there trying to reach. But let me share some additional truths. So we remember truth number one. Now, truth number two is you're not who you are. You're not even who you think you are. You are who they think you are. It's the image that they have of you in their head that is actually the reality for them. So it could be who you think you are, or who they think you are, or who they actually confuse you with. They may think you do something other than what it is that you do. So it's your responsibility to make sure that if you're a blue square, that they see you as a blue square and not as a shape, but that shape is something different. Truth number three is your pitch, your story, your website, your communication one on one, whatever that is that represents you, may be the only thing that they see. They may not see your hard work, everything you know, your idea, your business plan, experience, whatever technology you have, traction. They don't see that directly. What they see is the representation of that through your story. And the story happens in one of two ways. It is either the one they guess because they're picking up a little information here or there, or you're not telling your story well, and they control that. But if you develop a story, a persona, and can communicate it convincingly, the reality is the story you deliver. Your story is the one you have control over. So that's pretty much what we're looking for. In every case, no matter what you do, once again, if you're a startup, a business, you're an independent, you're a solo person, you're a career seeker, we have to tell people who we are, what we do, what we do for them, and what we need. What is the expectation? So, who we are, why we're doing what we do, what we do for them. That's the important principle here, and what they need. Truth number 4, it's not your audience or market's responsibility to understand who you are. It's your responsibility to communicate clearly so that they get the right picture. Truth number 5 is if they're wrong, don't blame them. It's our responsibility. I do a lot of mentoring. Let me tell you about the worst mentee I ever had. Let us, for the moment, call him Frank. Frank had a company. Frank had a startup. Frank was a scientist, engineer actually, and he came in a half an hour we can attain a whole lot of stuff in a mentoring session. And I said, Frank, what do you do? And he started to explain to me, and it was all technical, all his statistics, all the things that he would understand that nobody outside of his world would understand. And he got about a minute and a half into the presentation. I said, Frank, I'm just a little lost here. Is there a way that you can explain this in a simpler way? And he looked at me and he threw his pen down onto the table. And he said, you mentors and investors are all alike. And I said, excuse me? And he said, yes, you're just so dense. You just don't get it. So keep in mind, I'm doing this for free. And I played along. I said, okay, Frank, what is it that makes us so thick? And he said, because I explain this over and over and none of you get it. Well, Frank didn't really understand that it was not my responsibility. So we ended a 30-minute session in about 5 minutes because I couldn't help him. Truth number 6 is your audience doesn't owe you a thing. You need, and market as well, you need to earn it every minute, every interaction. My first career was in radio. And I learned, and this is a long time ago, but I learned probably the most important lesson of communication when I was in radio. Here I am in a studio by myself, but I'm assuming I've got a big audience out there. But I recognized that I was only a button push away from somebody tuning me out. If I said something that just wasn't engaging, if I played a piece of music, that's what I was doing then, they didn't like, they would tune me out. If they found something that was more interesting, they would tune me out. But the lesson that I learned was you don't have to be in radio for people to tune you out. They can be sitting right across from you. And if you do not engage them, they may start thinking about something else or reach down and do some texting. So it's our responsibility to keep attention, to engender interest and engagement, to align with them, to make them feel comfortable, to get them to agree, and ultimately to get them to do some kind of action we want, because we communicate, because we want to drive what we want people to do. So I think your story, no matter what you do, is your most important asset. It clearly communicates in simple terms, if you can, what it is you do, what it is you can do for the people who you are trying to reach, why they should care. So think about the most frequently asked questions. You go into anywhere, and people, after you say your name, think about the first question you generally get. And when I do this live, everybody shouts it out at the same time, and it is, what do you do? And I ask people all the time. That's the way I interact. I say, hey, what do you do? And very often people hit me with this content that is not relevant to me, or it's too complex, or I just don't get it. And I end up following up by saying, my follow-up question is just one, and that is, what do you do? They failed to answer the question the first time. So we need to be instantly clear. We need to be compelling. We need to ignite their curiosity so they really want to know more about what it is you do. And it needs to be the right story for each audience. And we'll be talking very specifically about that and why that is so important and how you know about your audience even before you carry on the conversation. And ultimately, we want to be memorable. We want to be the ones who move from their short-term attention to a long-term memory. They remember who you are. You got to get people to say, "Tell me more." I think that's the the ultimate goal, and that's part of the book that I wrote. That's part of the title. It is getting people to say, tell me more." It's fairly simple. We got to get an idea from inside of our brain into somebody else's brain. But it's even more than that. We got to get it from our gut into their gut. They need to feel that there is some connection, some value to what it is that we offer that makes it in their best interest to continue to listen and once again lean forward. Piquing curiosity is ultimately important. So once again, it's who are you? Why do you do what you do? What it is that you do, and specifically what you do for them. Why is your business or any offering you have important to them? And then what the next step is. How do we proceed? So I would ask you, true or false, what's the purpose of a presentation or any kind of interaction? Is it to change what people know? And we would have some interaction if we were live, and we would figure out that's false. We present, we interact to change what people do. Buy my service, hire me, support me, whatever it is. It's always what we want people to do. So before we think about what we want to communicate, what we want people to know, we need to start with what we want people to do. We have to know from the get-go what our overall goal is. And it could be hire me, fund me, buy my service, and it's always a verb. So I want you to find your verb. So there's a bit of science behind all of this idea of decision making, persuasion, influence, because it becomes the fuel to what you want people to do. And the science says that we do not make decisions. People will not say yes based on the cognitive information. We do not make decisions in the cognitive part of our brain. We make decisions in the emotional part of our brain. We do not say yes until our gut says, I'm comfortable with everything that I've heard. They look at your content, but they have to assimilate that into their own viscera. They need to feel that there is some connection, and think about the things you decide to do, buy. It really is, you don't make that decision just based on that. You got to feel that it is absolutely right. So the only way to get people to do what we want them to do is we need to address how they feel. If they're not doing what we want to do, they're not buying our product or technology, then we got to change that. If they already are, we have to reinforce that. That will help people make that decision of what for themselves of what it is that they want to do. That's how we get them to listen, how we get them to like you, how we reinforce, how we change. So once again, it is all part of your overall story. And I want to define story in a very simple way. Once again, I'm a guy who thinks that the best way to communicate things is make it as simple initially as possible. There's a lot written about story. Stories around us, we're story animals. We grew up and learned by story. We are influenced by story. We hear a story and we lean forward, and sometimes we even project ourselves in the story. That's why sometimes when you're selling, it's really interesting to have a case study to explain something as it is really happening or has happened, how you solved a problem, how you provided an opportunity. Because in these case studies, in these once upon a time stories, your audience will also sometimes identify with that story, put themselves in it, makes a connection. So you can look at the work of there's a great philosophic story guru named Joseph Campbell, where he wrote about the hero's journey, hero's quest. And it really defines the structure of stories everywhere. No matter the society, culture, stories have the same building blocks, but we don't want to get into that. Interesting. Read it if you'd like, but I want to simplify what story is. Story is your narrative plus that emotional link. What's that thing that makes people lean forward and want to know more, want to connect with it? So once again, facts enter through that cognitive portal. You want your facts, features, benefits, opportunities, everything. You want that to make a connection. So you want that to go through the emotional or affective portal. So you need to find a way to connect what you do with what people want. And every presentation will come down to two things. It's your information and the image that you project. Once again, if we were in a live group, I would say, which one do you think is most important? And to the person, people understand it's the image. We forget a lot of the facts that people tell us. We don't forget the impression that was made, how they feel about you or what it is that you do. And this is a very famous quote, Maya Angelou, and it really reflects what good communication is all about, especially if you want to drive some action. So let's go back and let's answer that very simple question: what do you do? Too many people explain at that point too much detail, and they talk about themselves. They talk about how their idea works or things that are in great detail that people don't necessarily want to know. When somebody says, what do you do? Here's what they really want to know. First, why do you deserve to be in the cosmos? What's the problem you're solving? What's the pain you're eradicating? What's the opportunity that you're presenting? Every startup needs to understand that. Every business needs to understand that. Even every job seeker who's looking for an opportunity in to be hired for a job needs to show why they deserve to be in the cosmos. Specifically, what problem do they solve for the people who they're trying to reach, or pain or opportunity? Now, is it something that no one's ever done before, or you're absolutely totally unique, or is it something that people have done before, or you are all about, but you can do it better? If you can show even a greater alignment um, to whoever your audience is. So the first part of it is, why do you deserve to be in the cosmos? That's a little bit about you. But the second part of it, when they say, what do you do, is why should they care? That needs to be about them. That's when you need to connect who you are, what you do with what they need, and what that makes them feel good about perhaps interacting with you. And the third, and people sometimes forget about this, is we say, what do we do next? How do we go on? Now that you understand me, I understand you. What's the next step? What's the ask? So think about these when somebody says, what do you do? or they're simply inquiring about what service or opportunity that you provide. These are the things that I think reflect what that question really is. I want to share with you a handful of best practices, tips, guidelines. Um, and where are these from? This is based on a model that I developed a number of years ago that I've used with businesses, I've used with startups, I've used with mature companies, Fortune 500 companies. Um, and it's all very basic. These are principles I'm going to share with a 10 or 11 with you. Um, and I can make a copy of some of these in summary I'll tell you how to do that in the end. But these are from my book. And the book has about 110 of these. But what I do in this hour session is I've pulled out the 10 or 11 that I think are going to be the most relevant to you, that if you don't apply any of the others, these will give you a very good start. So practice number one is know who you want to reach and why it's important. Who is your audience? Who is your market? Who are the people who you're trying to reach? You need to understand as much about them and why it is important to you and why it's important to them. So it is your intent, your strategy, long before your content. You will tell people about what it is you do or what you can do for them by understanding what is important to them. And that's, I think, the best way to begin to figure out how to reach people. For startups, it's investors. For all of you, it's your market. It can be internal communications with your staff. And if you're part of a large organization, it's with your employer. And for job seekers, it's the interviewer. So you need to know what is of value to them. You have to put yourself in their head because they're the ones ultimately making the decision. So you've got to balance what's in it for you and against what is in it for them. The second is find your verb. It is always about what you want others to do. And sometimes it can be simple as remember me. Other times it is buy my service, come and visit me. Let's do a follow-up. Ask me for more information. All of these are verbs. Find your verb when you're making any kind of interaction or developing any story that you want to draw people in. And remember, no matter what it is the verb. So find your verb. Number three, make it their story. It's not just what we do. It's not about me, me, me. It's not here, look at me. This is all of what we do. It is not that, because that doesn't have anything to do with them. You've got to find a way to connect what it is that you do to what it is that they need. And once again, it's by understanding who your audience is and telling the right story to them that they will, once again, lean forward. They will listen. They will like you. They will find you credible. And if you're very lucky and if you've done it skillfully, you will separate yourself from all the other decisions out there. And they'll say, tell me more. And they may end up doing specifically what it is that you want them to do. So you really need to figure out it's their story. Why should they care? Why should they get involved? So ask yourself, who it is. What's the demographic? What's the interest? Why are you important to them and they are important to you? Why them? Why are you approaching them? Why are they an important part of your market, your business? What do they need to know about you? What do they need to feel? Why now and not later on? What is it that they expect from you? And what might you know about them, once again? And you want to look at the outcome, the action. What's the long term and the short term? think about that. You don't have to spend hours and hours, but make sure you have this visceral feeling that you understand your audience. And it's really about shoes. It's, each person has a different size and a different interest, a different style. You've got to figure out what that is, because one size does not necessarily fit all. The companies that are most successful are the ones who know what it is that they do, because that doesn't change, but be able to tell people in a way that they see that your content is really about them. So we have to stop telling our stories from the inside out. You need to look at whoever it is you're trying to reach, think like them, and give them the correct lens to be able to see who you are. And different audiences, different markets, uh, different people will have maybe different needs. So you need to find out what angle they're looking at you and provide them with the right lens to be able to see who you are. So you may be the subject matter, you may be the heroes, but it really needs to be about them. They have to see the connection so that they feel viscerally that there is some content. Number 4 is the big picture first. Uh, you do something. It is pretty basic, pretty clear. And over time, you have developed all these other things that support that idea, that embellish your business. Lots of detail, lots of factual stuff. And sometimes people say, what do you do? And what do we do? We tell them this. And the problem might be that they're going to get lost in detail. They're not going to necessarily understand clearly what you are, why you're differentiated. It's again, that's the story they're going to surmise as opposed to the one that you want to control. They may even take one of these elements and think that's what you do, and it may not be relevant to them. So what we need to make sure we do is start out with that big picture. Let them know in general what it is that you do. Then you can go into detail. So know when to tell the detailed information at the right time. Number 5, and this is the one that I think is ultimately very important, especially if you're competing, showing what you're like, but then showing why you're different. Let me go off on a tangent for a minute. I had to buy a refrigerator. Now, I don't know if you have gone through the same thing. Refrigerators these days last just about as long as the warranty on the compressor, and they're very expensive. So I had to go out and buy, I think, my gazillionth refrigerator. And the refrigerators all do the same thing. What they're like, they keep things cold. But I looked at a variety of refrigerators. All of them presumably keep things cold, but they had different features. And those features referenced to benefits that I needed. So, one had this middle pull-out drawer that I think is really kind of nice. It didn't have the little TV on the front of the refrigerator, which I didn't need because I'm going to watch Netflix. I'll watch it on a TV and not on my refrigerator. Um, so I made my decision about the refrigerator based on not how similar it was to other refrigerators, but what made it different. So in the world that you're in, you may do something that there is a whole lot of competition, and you need initially to tell people that that's the world that I'm in, what it is that we all do, but that's not going to benefit you. You have to show why you're different. You've got to show that, yes, I'm in that big triangle, but here is what makes me different better. And you need to identify that. So the general category first, and then why you're different and better. And if you can get that to align with what you know that their needs are, then you have the inside track. So we engage, we'll lean forward, we'll identify based on how similar you are to other things that I know, but we will decide based on the differences. Think about the refrigerator. So if you do not differentiate, you're 1 in 97. Choosing that's the odds. If you differentiate yourself, now you're 1 in 2. It's either you or someone in that big pile. So think about how you differentiate yourself. Number 6, do not oversell. I cannot tell you the number of times that I have been ready to make a decision and they go one bridge too far. And now, instead of me saying yes, it's, now I have to think about it. Keep in mind how much you need to tell people so that you're omitting nothing that's important for them to make the decision, but you tell them just what they need. So our goal is not to take everything we know about what it is that we do and just download it into people's brains. We have to know what is important to them, what will give them make that decision. And there's a really interesting thing called cognitive load theory, and that would take 2 hours to go through, so we're not going to do that. The important thing is, how do we remember? How do we intake information in little learning chunks? Now, the theory is that we can remember between 5 and 9 things at a time. Now, in your presentation, you can have a number of these chunks of 5 to 9, but they can't actually be more than, in terms of the chunks, be more than 5 to 9. But let's say any learning chunk, any communication chunk, let's say there are 6 things that are ultimately important. If you tell them those 6, there's a very good chance they're going to remember most, if not all. But what do we tend to do? We pepper our presentations with a lot of things that are totally irrelevant. Now that creates a problem. They're not savvy enough necessarily to differentiate between what's really important and what is not relevant. So they're going to forget all but about 6, about between 5 and 9, and it could be the things that are most important. So if you engage people, you get them excited, but you haven't told them everything that they need to know, they're going to ask a question. But if you do what too many people do and just blather on, then I think the response is going to be probably a little bit different. I want you to use real stories sometimes. These sort of once upon a time things, the case studies. Have them identify um, with it through perhaps a narrative tale, the once upon a time story, the case study. But it could be just an example or an analogy or a hypothetical, anything that creates that emotional link between what it is you do and what you want and how they feel about it, how so they can make a decision. What is that emotional connection? And it could be any number of these things. It could be any kind of wedge, an experience or pain that we all have, or a reminder of what's good. Any of these things become that connection of what a good story could be. I have a friend uh, who is right now probably one of the best executive coaches out there. He's been doing it for a number of years, but his first career was in music. He had years and years and years ago a small 3 or 4 piece swing band. Worked in Boston for some years, went to New York, had a little bit of a following, and he was invited to be on All Things Considered on NPR. Now, he had performed in front of audiences before, but he had never done a radio interview. And a friend said, when Chad said, I'm a little nervous about this. I don't know what I'm necessarily going to say. I don't know what kind of questions that I'm going to be asked. And the advice was always have a fallback story, something you did, something that happened when you were on the road, something that happened during a performance, something that would be interesting. So Chad went through the interview and it worked well. They recorded an hour and then they were going to cut it down to the best 5 minutes. So they went through the interview. Chad felt pretty good about it. In the end, the host said, Chad, anything else you want to tell me? And he said, I don't know why I want to tell you this, but here's a very interesting story. And he told the story that he had as the backup. All Things Considered ran one thing, and it was the story. So stories do have a very, very great power. Number eight, it's not what you've done in the past. It's what that means for whoever you want to reach in the future. I see people all the time who are looking for a job, and they hand a resume, which is all the stuff that they did in the past. That's the past. What an audience, in this case, an employer, or it could be any audience, wants to know is, yes, that may be what you've done in the past. How can you leverage that to be what's more important? What needs to be the focus? And that is what you can do for me in the future. So think about your experience in your past, but always relate it to what it is that your audience wants. And once again, resumes talk about past experience. When you're talking to people, when you're presenting, when you're speaking, when you're doing a pitch, monitor your audience. Now, it is a little bit harder in the venue we have right now, especially now because I can't really see you. But when you have an opportunity, monitor your audience, watch for them. Pepsi-Cola was one of my clients for a number of years. We did pretty much all of their internal training. And I learned one very important thing from one of the salespeople. We were doing a film on sales. I talked to the senior people, and I said, before we do this film, I want to go down. I want to spend time with your frontline people. So I spent the day with a guy who's the salesperson. And he said something that I will always remember. And that is, if you listen hard enough, your customer will always tell you how to sell them. So it's a matter of listening. It's a matter of monitoring it. And when you're presenting, monitor your audience. It gives you feedback. It also, by eye contact, if you have it, it can keep their attention. So telling your story is just as important about listening. Number 10, share your passion. You need to be excited about this. You need to be enthusiastic. You need to be conversational. You need to be authentic. If you cannot be excited about what it is that you do and what you can do for them, they're not going to be excited at all. So show your passion. Show your passion even of your commitment to them. And also keep in mind, every time you present, whether it's a sales pitch, whether you're trying to sell an idea internally, whatever that happens to be, every time you pitch, every time you have a presentation, every time you have an interaction, it is an opportunity. You may find, however, that the person you're talking with is not necessarily going to be your best customer, your best audience, your best market. Pitch with integrity and pitch your heart out no matter what, even though you know, and you may not try to oversell them. You may not push them if you know they're not going to want to buy, but have them feel comfortable enough with you, because you may not be for them, but they may know a guy. They may be able to refer you. You know, I can't use your services, but I'm impressed, is what you want them to go say inside their head. So what does all this mean? It means that your story is very important. I want to go, we have an extra moment or so. I want to discuss something I did not put in this presentation, but I think is really important. Sometimes I think the Q&A that you get, the interaction you get, is as important as your pitch and your story. They see how you interact. They see how you respond, how you think on your feet. So you may be asked a question. I normally don't have rules. I prefer to have guidelines. Rules only apply to things we've done in the past. You may be doing things that are really new and interesting. So I would rather give you guidelines, as I have. Use the ones you need, but they will help you make decisions about how you construct a story or have an interaction. But Q&A is really important. 3 rules of Q&A. Number 1, never make up an answer. If you don't know, say you don't know and you're going to find out. This is especially important because if you blow your credibility, you may be done. And what I tell startups is if you're with an investor, they may ask a question, and what do they already know? They already know the answer. So it's okay to say, I don't know. I'll find out. Second thing is listen to the question. It's like these game shows where people buzz in too early and they give a stupid answer because they didn't listen to the question. So listen to the question and let them finish. But there's another interpretation of my request to listen to the question, and that is listen for the subtext. Why are they asking? Why is that important? And the third thing is keep your answer simple and straightforward. Don't lose people. And keep in mind, there's something called the intermediary question. It's what I call it. And that is that little question we ask. Sometimes it's a yes or no. Sometimes it's a couple of words that we need to be able to pose the actual question we want to ask. And very often people will go off on this long tangent. And at the end, very frequently, people get so lost in your answer that they forget the question that they really want to ask. So the Q&A is really important. Understand that sometimes you just want to lay seeds for them to ask the question. You want questions because that shows that they're involved. That shows that they interact. So keep in mind the following. Every time you interact with people, you need to start by capturing their attention. You need to engage them. You need to keep them involved with relevant content that applies to them. Make it clear and simple. Do not overtell your story. Do not inundate people with way too much, especially early on. Make it memorable. Give them something that makes them want to remember you. And sometimes it's a little story you tell, and sometimes it's just the way you interact with people. And remember, all of it is about driving action. So again, you need to interest people. You need to get them aligned. You need to have them agree. You need action. So whatever it is that you do well, you need to be as good talking about it. So get your story, practice it, but communicate in the most authentic conversational way. It never works if people memorize. Poor guy, I was judging a pitch contest. This is years ago at MIT with students who just graduated, but they had startup ideas. So they had a chance to pitch in front of folks like me and investors and an audience. People had 5 minutes to do it. Generally, most did a pretty good job. One guy was so concerned about not forgetting anything. He did the worst possible. He memorized it word for word. So when he delivered it, it was very stilted. He was communicating words and not thoughts and not feelings. But the worst part of it is about a minute into this presentation, he just went blank. He couldn't remember what the next thing was. Just deer in the headlights staring out. And he paused. It was only about 10 or 15 seconds, but it seemed like eternity for him. And he did the only thing he knew how to do, and that is he started from the beginning. So I spoke with him afterwards. I said, you know more about this than anybody. Just talk to us. So once again, comfort, authenticity is really very important. So the good news for us is if we remember the world of presentation at this point, if you can apply some of the things we've talked about, if you can get enthusiastic, if you have a good story, you will far surpass the people who are not doing it well. And that's another way to differentiate. Ultimately, we want people to listen. We want people to like you and ultimately do the thing we want them to do. That verb. So it is not just about your content. You need to start to think about your intent. What is it that you want your audience to do? What do you know about them? How can you tell your story? So the story really is about what you can do for them. You're going to present. You have an idea. You have a business, and you don't want to fail because your idea or your business wasn't good. Um, Sometimes it's simply because your story was not good. So, um, I want you to think about the things that resonated the most with you. What I will do in the end is I will leave you my email address. If you email me, I will send you a summary of these with all of the key points that we've talked about and additional references that you can find. But think about the things that are going to be the most important to you, the things that are going to change what you do. My goal is, first of all, to change the way you think about yourself and your story. It is changing insights. I gave you some practices. I'm suggesting there's some pitfalls that you want to avoid. But if I've done anything, I want to give you the confidence that you can go out and do this better than you ever thought you could. And I hope I give you the incentive to try. So we have a few minutes left. What I would like to do is turn this back over to our host. Before I do, let me do this. Um, this is the way to contact me. If you want to just take down, it's a very simple email address, chuck@chuckgoldstone.com. If you email me, I will happily send you out a summary of the key points from this presentation that you can just keep in a drawer and refer to if and when you want to upgrade your story. So it's chuck@chuckgoldstone.com. But now let's go back and let's see if there are some questions. Teresa, will I
Yeah.
see people or
Uh, yeah, they're gonna post questions and I can read
okay,
them out.
okay,
And then if we need to change that format, we can. I really actually only have one question at this moment.
okay.
So if
Well,
anyone's got any, please put those get those in. Um, I have a question that says, I would like to ask Chuck, tell me about yourself.
oh. I have had a delightfully eclectic career. My first career was in radio. I started when I was in college, and I got hired by one of the top 40 rock stations in Pittsburgh. And that's where I got excited and learned about communication. And then I came to Boston and left radio and did some graduate work because I was also interested. I was also doing some TV at the time, and I was interested in educational TV. So I got my master's degree in that, and then I started working in creating high level materials. And then after that, I worked in academia, and then I created my own company that I ran for some decades, and now I'm focused on helping people globally tell their story. I do have a kind of second career. I was on radio again. I was on public radio. There's a program called Marketplace. You may have tuned in once in a while. It's out of California. It's a national program, but I was one of the commentators. But I did not do business stuff. My sort of second career is, we can call it humorist. I've got a couple of books. I was on radio for years, and I used to keep those careers totally separate. People who in one world didn't know me in the other world. But I found out the thing that is common in both of them, it's about telling stories. So that's my background. I got very, very interested in the startup world. I still work with large corporate clients, but I got very interested in the startup world, people starting businesses. That's where people who have exciting ideas, they're coachable, and they just sometimes need a little bit of experience. Um, have a couple of books, and the latest one is on strategy and story. I love what I do. And I love watching the light bulbs go on over people's heads. I love the mentoring. That's why I have a lot of respect for what happens at SCORE. Um, Working with the right mentor can be a real catalyst for new ideas and just support. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm on LinkedIn
Great.
if people want to go into detail. I'm teaching now at one of the business schools Um, but once again, Chuck Goldstone on LinkedIn, and would be delighted to connect with any of you.
Well, now I have a whole slew of questions,
Oh,
Chuck.
let's go.
How would you handle a situation where someone doesn't want to hear your story, but just wants the facts and numbers?
You can tell facts and numbers, but in a way, let me give you I was addressing a group of CFOs, and this is years ago, and it was a breakfast meeting, and I was able to eat without getting food on my clothes, so I was happy when I started the presentation. And the first thing I said was, "Oh, you folks are into numbers, eh?" And they smiled and they nodded, and I said, "You know, numbers are meaningless." And at that point, I saw in these faces, why did we invite this guy? And I said, what you do, however, is very important. You just have to recognize it. It's not your numbers, it's the consequences of your numbers, it's the story behind your numbers. So, people who just want the facts are still making they're deluding themselves. They're still thinking about why those facts are important to them. So, yes, you can respond to them and get into detail, but they really are not going to make the decision based on just showing them an 8 or a spreadsheet. It's going to be what that represents. So you can be very savvy about that. I hope that answers the question. It really is about how can you make your facts relevant to them. They may not want all the flowery stories. Um, but once again, you're going to learn about them, maybe sometimes in advance. But if you monitor your audience, you're going to know, you're going to know how to deal with them and respond to them.
In the digital world we are in, what is the most effective way to tell a story and get the story out to the right people?
I think that the medium is not necessarily different in terms of story. You need to be consistent. On your website, you need to do these same things. You need to show who you are, why it's important to your audience. Make it about them. Uh, Too many, too many companies start their website, and the first thing you see is about us. Nobody cares about you. What they care about is themselves. So show early on in your website, in your text, in your emails. Um, Once again, I think it comes down to the same thing. Why is Here's what I do, but here's why it's important to you. Um, yeah, we have a whole lot of opportunities now. Get yourself out there. I'm now posting a lot more on LinkedIn. Do I get work directly from it? Who knows? Sometimes, but I get visibility. Um, I guess the statement that I would make is be consistent about who you are, no matter what medium you use, whether it's email, whether it's your tweeting. I still use the word tweet. Or if you're doing something on YouTube, make sure it is one consistent. And number two, it projects the right image. Number three, it gets people to lean forward because it's interesting, because it's something that's relevant to them. So
Okay,
uh,
great.
that's think about a consistency in your story across any medium.
Okay. And this will be the last question.
Okay.
Beside your book, are there other readings, podcasts, or resources you would recommend we read or listen to in order to learn more about the topics you've covered today, in particular the neuroscience aspects?
Yeah, there's some very interesting books out there. I don't have any right off the top of my head, but once again, go to the Google machine, type that stuff in. Um, I don't advise people looking at pitch books. I'm not a. I think the pitch community has failed. The pitch community focuses primarily on content. My particular bent And what I write about, what I teach in my master classes, what I do in speeches and speaking gigs, what I do in workshops like this is really communicate the power of a story, the power of intent. It is strategy. My book is called Strategies and Stories, and they're the same thing. Your story is the narrative you tell to the outside world. Your strategy is the story you tell yourself or those you're working with. So, uh, what I'm excited to hear about the question you asked is that I'm hoping that what we talked about today will be the incentive for you to look at who you are, what you do, who you're trying to reach, how you can be memorable, how you can differentiate. I want you to think about it in a different way. I would like that light bulb to go on, and I would like you to be able to take what you're doing now, invest in yourself. I'll leave you with this. As I said, I work with a lot of startups, and a lot of startups um, work toward their prototype, work toward their MVP, which is minimal valuable product, viable product, a minimal viable product, and they focus on that. And I tell people, if you put all your money and all your energy into that, you end up with something. May not be the best. To get it to be the best thing, you need to invest in yourself because that is where the idea is. That is where the MVP comes from. So I would say do what you're doing now. Find SCORE workshops, attend them, find other programs out there, find programs that are free, find programs that may not be free because you need to invest in yourself. But what I'm thrilled about is we have whatever number of people we have out there because what it shows, if you're still here, that you understand that there is power in your ability to communicate, to influence, to get people to listen, to like you, and to lean forward and say, I get it. Now tell me more. So anyway, yeah, I always enjoy doing these. I'd be delighted to have any contact with any of you out there. You can link with me on LinkedIn. If you write to me, Chuck at chuckgoldstone.com, I will send you a list of the practices we talked about and a couple of other things that we discussed here.
Well,
So,
I don't, oh, sorry.
no, I say, well, in mind, I'm going to hand the baton back over to you. And
Well, I hope that you saw all the accolades in the chat as we're leaving. And I think I want to end with what one of the attendees posted, which is this presentation has changed my perspective. Thank you.
excellent. I have just downloaded the chat and I will look at this and I thank you for thinking it's a great presentation. But what I really want is when you are communicating with others that they end up saying to you, great presentation.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we hope to see you again in the near future. Have a great day, everybody.